Good afternoon, everybody. This is Roaming Prepper Channel, and I am Pete, although most of you already know who I am. I hope all of you are having a great day. Uh, now that I got my angry rant because of what happened to my coworker and his spouse out of my system from yesterday's live, I figured I'd start looking and I guess, hey, Bug Dude, how are you? Joe, Monique, I think Brad just zipped by, Loretta. Um, I started thinking, why in heaven's name would this be going on? We have the inflation, we have the cootie, which apparently the newest variants are not really a cootie at all, um, and we have rampant crime that leaders don't seem to be really taking care of. So these are all symptoms. At the same time, we have an economic issue. And then I saw this video, and I'm going to bring it up to you. And then I started kind of thinking, are they kind of prepping us for something to get ugly? Hey, Klingon Princess, how are you? See, what's going to happen is I'm going to teach everybody like obnoxious things to say in Spanish, and then you're going to repeat them to your friends and crack somebody up in a party. Uh, but I'll tell you what, guys. It almost seems like there's something bigger even than the cootie. And I'm hoping I'm wrong. This is purely me playing geopolitics. But I saw this, and how I missed it the first time, I do not know. And it actually blows my mind. So I don't know how many of you saw this. I'm going to share it with you now if I can play nicely with the screen. Because I'm a little bit concerned there's a bigger picture here. I think all this stupidity in the streets, aside from trying to get votes and kiss butts, they're trying to distract us from the fact that our economies and our supply chains are garbage. But at the same time, one of the best ways to fix an economy is to create a disaster somewhere. We're not really tries to tell it, Brand. um, Hey, John, how are you? John T, Joe, who else? Wait, I missed someone there. Sorry, guys. The chat blew by a little fast. I'm going to play this for you guys, and I just think about this for a second. Let me see if the audio will work. So, okay, and no, we don't want to see that down there. So, we all know Ukraine is having an issue, and I saw this. So, some context. So they're saying that they have reason to believe that some people who are sympathetic to Russia are planning a coup to facilitate an invasion, which would not be an uncommon thing. Um, um, Historically speaking, you want to take down a kingdom, you kill the king, and by the time they find a new king, you've overrun the kingdom. You know, it's that ancient Game of Thrones, for lack of a better description. But according to these guys, let me see if the audio or video comes back on. I guess it's just music. I thought it had some talking, but
великі виклики всередині нашої держави, які вже фіксують розвідки інших країн. Я скажу вам відверто, живу в цьому процесі. Наприклад, і отримала інформацію, що 1 числа в нашій державі буде державний переворот.
So Russia has been very harsh on its oligarchs, so I find it hard to believe a businessman would get roped in by Putin unless he's getting leverage somehow. But you notice what's happening here. These guys are infighting now, right? The business guys don't trust the president, doesn't trust the Senate, whatever's going on. This is going to start becoming for all you know, this could be basically fake news. It could be a false plant. If Putin, remember, Putin's a chess player, right? He's ex-KGB, so he's thinking in terms of not, yeah, basically they're trying to rebuild the old Tsarist Russia. Just without a czar, they have a Putin. Um, but I think there's a bigger picture here because, truthfully, the and I let me find that chart, but the here we go. Yes. So right now our economy is garbage. We've got rampant street crime, and basically the wheels fell off. This great social experiment or whatever it was our leadership is trying to do didn't do it very well, and plus the Rona is just a mess, right? People are tired of everything, and they want to go and cause problems in the streets. So now you have protests everywhere. What better way, for those of you who read 1984, War is Peace, right? Which sounds contradictory. But when you have a war, all your people are focused on this enemy somewhere else, and they're not focused on fighting each other. Uh, Once the Soviet Union, hey, Arkansas, what's going on? Once you've given the society a common foe, everyone focuses on the foe, and they're no longer focusing on what pisses them about each other. Hey, JH, how are you? So I'm going to share this, and I'm going somewhere with this, guys, because as I started after my whole street crime rant yesterday, I started thinking, well, why would they not clamp down on this? Why would you allow this nonsense to continue? Um, let's see if I can expand this a little bit. Um, that did not do what I expected. Okay, there we go. So notice every time and again, I'm assuming a lot. This is a consumer price index equated back, and yeah, bug dude, absolutely. Um, Now, and what they did, they back calculated the GDP and everything, right? Because the records weren't great in like 1812. So, but you look at the wartime, the consumer price index, Civil War, War of 1812, World War One, World War Two. You went into these depressions, these economic recessions, these slumps. Uh, this would have been there was a recession before World War Two, and then here was the Great Depression in here, and you had these drops after each war. The only one that went the other way was after World War Two. But you notice after World War Two, we had Korea, then we had Vietnam, then we had uh, interventions in South America. We chased the communists around Africa. Then we got into Iraq, and then that went on for 20 years. So this string here, whereas between these first three wars, the 1812 Civil War and World War One, you had significant pauses between. There were military actions, but there were no massive deployments. Yeah, and what you're looking at here is, the continuation of this upward curve. But right now, and again, it stops around here. So obviously, there's some kind of drop off at the end of this with the Rona that we can't see. But and that's exactly where I'm going, Bug Dude. Hey, Metal, I saw Metal in there somewhere. He just buzzed by the chat. There he is. Um, but Bug, that's exactly where I'm going with this. As I was kind of thinking, right now our leadership has garbage, right? Everything is just a train wreck. They took control. And you can complain about, prior president. I mean, every president inherits something good and something bad from the last guy, right? Um, but here we are. They've got the reins. The new party has come in, and it's not getting better. It's kind of a mess. Kind of a mess. And you're looking at this and going, well, if there's a big drop off somewhere back here, where exactly is that going to turn around, right? And that's my concern, is that we're going to get, for those of you unfamiliar with World War One, what wound up happening was you had a lot of overlapping alliances, and it was actually a very stupid disagreement between Croatia and the Austro-Hungarian Empire that wanted a piece of Croatia. Germany was actually trying to negotiate out between the two, and but what they asked for from Croatia was too much, and Croatia basically flipped Austria the bird, and Austria declared war. Germany had to back them up because they were allies, and it went down the toilet from there. And then the next thing you knew, all the czars, all the kings, all the aristocracy that was left after the French Revolution in Europe basically just disappeared. Yeah, and Joe, we should, and that's a good point too, right? There was a central banking system that we did not have since then, or before then. Yeah, they ended up with the Treaty of Versailles, and this is what's concerning me, is the verbiage, the language I'm starting to hear, and I'm going to bring this one up here. The language I'm starting to hear, and by the way, I think it was New York Prepper. I may be wrong. I know Appalachia touched on it, but hey, Milkmaid, um, damn, I got them mixed up. It wasn't angry. Magic, Appalachia, and I swear it was New York Prepper may have touched on this. Um, but everyone's catching different tidbits, so I just wanted to share this with you. Um, if I can get the screen to play nicely. Bear with me a second here. I might get kicked out here in a second. Well, Joe, and that made it worse because Germany had no choice but to start a war to get what they needed. Um, apparently, my screen does not wish to play. Uh-oh. Huh. I don't know if you guys can hear me right now. Everything just froze, which sucks. So if you can hear me, by all means, put something in the chat. But I think I just hosed myself here. Hey, so that's what they get for trying to shadow ban me. I used to be an IT guy. I'm better than that. Actually, I may have had a million windows open. I probably did break it, to be honest with you. Okay, so anyway, well, I had to close all my 5 million windows. Point being, yeah, or farting or arguing with a dog or something like that. That would have been bad. Um, so where I was going with that before I froze my own windows, after every bad recession, depression, going back into the early 1800s for the US, for whatever reason, and typically, if you look at the history, there were other economic issues elsewhere, right? Like, um, the famine in Ireland, which is what brought a lot of the Irish into Boston and New York, those cities, was happening right before World War One as well. So there were famines, there was all sorts of bad stuff going on. And Yay, I'm back. Uh, so I did IT magic, is what I did. So right, basically, every time there's a bad recession, it affects everything. All the politicians get angry at each other. The countries get angry and they start posturing, and then the posturing often leads to a war. And so I'm going to pull up, I'm going to have to pull it up one at a time. And basically, we're seeing things like this, and that concerns me because, and I'll bring this, let me try this again. And I'm Monique. Uh, So the Biden administration warned on Wednesday that a Russian invasion of Ukraine would trigger high impact U.S. sanctions. Now, keep in mind, before World War II broke out, the U.S. told Japan, quit screwing with China, quit screwing with Korea, and quit messing with the Philippines. And Japan did something they disagreed with and I believe it was Roosevelt was in office already. He my new IT guy. I actually worked in a hospital when they went from the old orange screen computers with that printers, the dot matrix printers, to Windows. I've never been called a Gestapo so many times in my life by the old doctors there. It was the most hysterical thing because they needed passwords. But I digress. Anyway, I've had some experience playing with the computers. Um, but this is concerning to me because right now, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, if I'm correct, they are indeed NATO members. Okay, and they're adjacent to this mess. So, and that's concerning. So anyway, he said before World War II, where I was going with that, before World War II, Roosevelt basically put these high impact sanctions on Japan, which included an embargo of oil from us and from the Middle East. And hey, militant, what's going on? And what wound up happening is, in desperation, Japan went, well, we need oil now. And so they went and they invaded the Philippines and Indonesia to get those oil fields and the rubber sources in the Southeast Asia and the Pacific. And the sanctions actually caused the war to escalate. I really hope that doesn't happen here. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, speaking in the Latvian capital of Riga this after meeting with his NATO counterpart, so yeah, I was right, said Russian large-scale troop buildup on Ukraine's border and other pressure tactics resemble steps Moscow took before it invaded Ukraine in 2014. Um, before I got kicked off my own chat, off my own uh, presentation, you notice, so now the Ukrainians are believing that there's a coup attempt. They're suspicious of each other. All the data, the information they have could be false flags. It could be a bunch of bull. But now the US is saying, well, we're going to back the Ukraine. Well, the Ukraine doesn't exactly know what the heck's going on. And see, and Monique brings up another point, right? China's arming Pakistan, and India and Pakistan do not get along, and they're nuclear equipped. I mean, they don't have a bunch of missiles like Russia and the US do, but they have enough bombs to really make a mess of their part of the world. So again, this is concerning me because where it's going, is we have yeah, the parallels are disturbing. Where it's going is we're seeing a lot of the same posturing, the overlapping treaties, and a lot of countries are making promises that somebody's going to have to keep at some point. I'm going to share this with you guys as well. Uh, and this is really maybe I should do it in English instead of French. Although I'm sure some of you may speak French. Um, let me make sure I got the right screen there. There we go. So you can see right here. It's not even a comparison as far as strength. Um, Russia has 2,700 mobile tanks. They've got 18,000 in storage. Okay, that's a lesson they learned fighting the Nazis. Just overrun the other side with tanks. Way more aircraft, even though I would argue Ukraine has modernized. Russia is not chinchy aircraft. Russian helicopters are well known to perform. Um, yeah, it's not even a competition here. Um, and Bug Dude, that goes to, I believe, what's it called? It's not the fourth cycle, the fourth turning, the fourth cycle. I just blanked out. But yeah, there's been, and if you remember that chart I showed you about the recessions, the Civil War of 1812, and then you had Civil War in 1870s, 1860, actually started in 1861, so that was about 60 years. Um, and World War One, so it was another. Right, and there's a variable, Joe, and that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up because recently, you guys remember what we did in Afghanistan to the Russians, which they did not forget and they did not appreciate. Uh, we gave uh, we gave the Mujahideen Stinger missiles, supervised, of course, but they made a train wreck of the Russian helicopters, which was the only reason the Russians were kicking everyone's ass, is because they had control of the air and they lost it. So, officially speaking, this is what has gone on so far. And this is from the national interest. And let me see. Ukraine is getting 150 deadly anti tank missiles. They actually meant, well, 10 launchers, 150 Javelin anti tank missiles. These things will absolutely smoke a tank. Well, I think they did in Afghanistan. I'm pretty sure those Kalashnikovs didn't magically appear from somewhere. They may have gone through 5 different hands to get there, but they did. 40 million deal signs signals a political retreat from the administration of President Donald Trump. In a July 2019 phone call with the Ukrainian president, Trump strongly insinuated that the U.S. would sell Raytheon made missiles only if the Ukrainian government agreed to investigate Hunter Biden. And that caused a whole problem for Trump. Um, but but in reality, they right now there's Poland, and Militant has a very good point here. Poland has a very old hatred with the well, technically, John, you misspelled it, so you didn't say it, but I understood it, so we can leave them like that so the bots don't see it. But we got it. um, so right now, Poland has a great ancient hatred with the Russians. I mean, a very old hatred, and Poland, however, has a much more substantial army than the Ukraine. Um, and of course, we have this going on right now too. Let me see if I can bring this up. And where I'm going with this, guys, I'm amazingly concerned. Hey, Rip Curl, I saw everyone saying hi to Rick. There he is. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And oh no, I did something wrong here. There we go. Um, So right now, this is the New York Post. So we all know that Poland has a bunch of immigrants that have come up from various places in the Middle East and are now trying to get into Poland. Poland locked down their border with Belarus, and the soldiers have been like playing cat and mouse games. We've got a lot of posturing in a very close environment, and I'm just waiting. Someone's going to make a mistake. This is my big fear, and I don't think our leaders would really be worried about it because it would distract all of us from the fact that bleach is $6 and you know eggs are $5 and everything is stupid. Um, let me see if I can get a good map of Europe because I want to just point out. Oh yeah, yeah, the ancient rivalries there are amazingly very deep. And so I want to pull up a map of the Ukraine because just to Ukrainian news, stuck on it. Well, I had all these tabs all preset, and then I crashed my own computer in my brilliance. So, ta-da! Okay, here we go. So I just want to point this out, and guys, I'm not going to be too long on this chat. It's just something I want to watch for because I'm actually concerned about it. My fear is that all the posturing, they're trying to distract us from the fact they can't get the economy fixed because it's all screwed up. So here's Russia, obviously, and here's Belarus. Belarus and Russia are very closely tied. Here's the Ukraine, right? Ukraine annoys Russia. Moldova, I don't know if they're a NATO partner yet, but these three guys, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they are. Russia doesn't like having NATO at his doorstep. Poland is back here, but keep in mind if something pops off here in Kharkiv, or if the Russians try to go through to hit Kiev and they hit Poland or Lithuania, one of the NATO members, by default, all of these nations who are part of NATO will react to that. And you see, yeah, and I think right now it's saber rattling. They're trying to distract us. Yes, I would absolutely believe that. So I believe it's Kaliningrad. So for those of you unfamiliar, and that's a really good point Arkansas brings up. So Moscow, here's Russia. This weird little country looking thing between Lithuania and Poland is actually considered part of Russia. And that's Kaliningrad, and that's a massive military presence. I mean, that's a beautiful base for Russia to go and put submarines and screw with everyone out here. Keep in mind, all these guys are also NATO members. But, well, but see, my fear, Joe, is someone's going to miscalculate. It's a lot of puffery until it's not, and and Joe has a valid point. NATO has been a drain because what's sad is little countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have paid more than their share into NATO, and pound for pound have better militaries than like Germany, but they're small. So, like individually, they couldn't fight Russia. But, yeah, thank you, Rip. I appreciate that, brother. That's a concern because we have so much saber rattling, as Joe rightly pointed out. Um, right now, uh, depending on the cost of good, and I saw a report and I can't find it, and I had it marked and it's gone. There's anywhere from a 20 to 50 or 60% price increase for a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff I've seen is tripled. I mean, it's straight up 300%. And that's a great way to fix an economy. You add the Rona, you add all the supply chain issues, the trade issues, everyone's puffed up. There's a lot of violence on the streets right now, and now governments are posturing, and we could very well wind up seeing somebody screw up. And and this is let me see if I can find this was somebody's take. No, I did war and I got Call of Duty. That's not what I wanted. Um, okay, something like this. Hey, big chap, how are you? So, and this is where I'm afraid we're going to wind up. Uh, yeah, this is true, Bug Dude. War does help with overpopulation, and that's something. Do you guys see the overpopulation? There are too many people. We want to go to a different economy, but now we screwed up the one we have. And how do we distract you now that we broke everything? And this is something. And again, this is an independent paper, but look at it. Ukraine carries out airstrike drills along border region with Russia. Um, this is one of those situations, and understand Belarus is a Russian proxy. Um, right, it's a beautiful country. I have not been there. I've been to Austria. I've been to the Netherlands. I hadn't been through the Baltics up there, but yeah, this is where I'm afraid. So everyone just keep an eye on this, because if something pops off, even if it gets limited, if they catch it in time, everything's going to take a dump. Trade's going to go to. You thought the Rona was bad. Wait till some major powers trade some shots in one of the oceans. Hey, cat lady, how are you, man? That is an excellent question, and it's not one I really could answer. I don't think any of us can, but it's kind of like Frankenstein's monster, where ultimately it went back and killed its maker, or tried to kill its maker. These guys keep playing these games, and something's going to go sideways. And that's my concern. Is right now, see, at least in the China Sea, there's an ocean, there's water between China and Taiwan and Japan and the US. There's a little bit of room to maneuver, right? They can still screw up. I mean, we had a submarine crash into one of their destroyers, which was an epic stupidity. Or is their submarine hit our destroyer? um, but that's a lot of puffery in the ocean. These guys are on top of each other. You saw that map. um, all you need is, for instance, what happened when they shot down that Malaysian airline jet in Ukraine. Somebody screws up and they mistake an airliner, or they miscalculate and think a military flight has crossed into their airspace when it didn't, and they pop a rocket at someone. Because they shoot a rocket at a NATO fighter, it's going to pop flares, run away, and then someone's going to come back and drop a rocket on whatever launched it, and there we go. And that would be a mess. I just why wouldn't our leaders try to fix what's going on in our respective countries? But they seem to be spending a lot of time the last week talking. Oh, no worries, no worries. That's oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad to see you online. I heard it's been exciting for you. Hey, Sita, how are you? Uh, well, again, Joe, it's like what they did in Korea, right? They didn't beat because of better trained soldiers, or push the U.S. and NATO forces back because of better trained soldiers, or better equipment. They flooded the battlefield with 500,000 soldiers at one time, and a pile of T-34s left over from World War II, and they just went everywhere. You couldn't shoot them fast enough. That's what I see happening there. Because pound for pound, I think the Japanese, Philippine, and Taiwanese Air Force is way better. And it could pan out like that, like the air war in Korea, because they have to control the air first. And China may just send a flood of aircraft over Taiwan and just get decimated like they did in Korea. I mean, it was a 12 to 1, 20 to 1 kill rate, something insane. Like for every one allied plane that got shot down. Uh, no, and hey, Chris, I saw Chris go by. Doing good, good, good. So, again, guys, despite my rant yesterday about our crime situation here, why wouldn't we be fixing it? That's so easy. At every level, even the president could simply say, you know what? Yes, homelessness, mental illness, we need to help them, but we have to protect the general public. Enforce your laws. Okay, here's some funding, whatever. Put them in psych wards, get them off the street, clean up the streets. You clean up the streets, the small businesses come back, people start spending money, it solves the inflation problem. They could do it, but they're not. And I think it's because they're not sure what to do. They've got so many things have gone wrong at one time. Um, yeah, basically. Um, but there's a lot of talk. Our leaders are spending an inordinate amount of time puffing up at Russia. That's not really what. And to be fair, Russia may be saying, "You guys are distracted with your own stupidity. Let me go and run in for you." And yeah, there are a lot of options, Sita, that we could be that they could pursue. If they said, "Hey, we're going to rebuild these empty hotels and put homeless there and kind of monitor them and have mental health facilities, et cetera, and feed them, get them off the street," great. But they're not. My concern is they're preoccupied with Russia. You've got all these militaries literally hundreds of miles apart, multiple countries, some of which we have obligations. Sorry, Russia, Germany, France, the UK. We've got obligations to protect some of these guys. Russia doesn't like us impinging on them, so they're pushing back. I think what may wind up happening, they're going to slice off a piece of Ukraine, call it Western Ukraine, and put a buffer between NATO and Russia, just like they did with Belarus. Um, but again, Poland's now involved. The Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are kind of getting a lot of pressure, uh, and they somebody's going to screw up, and that's what concerns me. And that's why I started with the economic slide, right? There was a depression or a recession before every major war in the United States history. And I'm sure if you look at other countries, it's very similar, right? You have a plague, you run out of water, run out of gold, you go and take the other guys. We're at that point now. A lot of parallels to World War One. You got the overlapping alliances. You have the um, a lot of military maneuvering at very close quarters. Hey, Red October, how are you? Hey, Farmer's Son, what's going on? A lot of military maneuvers in very close quarters with each other, and a lot of smack talk. And someone, my fear, is going to screw up. And let me see if I can find that one other article on. And here we go. Here's another one. This one just popped up. Oh, and they took the page down already. That's scary. So see, so now the EU, which is, I don't know what the purpose of the EU is besides to agitate other people, but the EU, let's see if I can share that screen for you. There we go. Okay, so EU allows Poland Baltics to trim migrant rights at Belarus border. So think about what you're seeing here. Russia, via Belarus, is pushing a whole bunch of immigrants at NATO countries, Poland and the Baltics. They're now preoccupied with all of that. At the same time, they're massing their own troops against Ukraine, right? Poland has a bunch of nonsense to deal with. They've basically, hey, Brad, see, there were a few people jumped in. Hey, Corn Pop, how are you? And that's where I'm going with it, Corn Pop. And I think, yeah, you may have missed it, but I'll recap it because it's a good point to think about. We shouldn't be messing with this right now. There's got to be another way. My fear is that, and there was an earlier article on the president threatening to take extreme uh, economic measures against Russia. The US did that to Japan before World War II, and in desperation, Japan just went and invaded the Philippines and the Dutch East Indies, which was really Malaysia and those areas, and it took off from there. Or to distract them, Joe. They've got 1,000 troops on their border trying to manage all these folks, and you don't know if there are any sleeper agents in that. The Baltics are in the same boat, and we all know Belarus and Russia are basically catty corner to two sides of the Ukraine. Okay, if there's an advance in from both countries in the direction of Ukraine, there's no way they'll stop them. No way. And as pointed out earlier by Corn Pop, yeah, we shouldn't be messing with it. They need to be very careful about how severe. There's Russia wants something, and one article said that they want a legal guarantee from the UN and from the US or whatever from NATO that they will not enlist the Ukraine into NATO formally. They did the Baltics, but yeah, and that's the thing. And then you wonder with our own border issues here. Um, we're not worried about the workers. You get criminals and rapists, whatever, and you get workers and families. It's a mix of people. Who's to say? I'm pretty sure we already have dangerous people in the country. And when I say dangerous, not a murderer. I'm talking about someone who can do some serious damage to the infrastructure, and they may already be here, right? Again, it's that fifth column philosophy. You get people into the countries you want to disrupt so you can go after what you want. And I'm seeing this happen here. These parallels between what we're seeing and what we saw in World War I is right, and he will, and he has 18,000 tanks or whatever many were in that chart. So, yeah, it's and yeah, you pay attention to what's going on around you, especially if you're in a smaller town. Watch, you see folks. Look, every family I met that came from another country, as soon as they moved in and unpacked, they kind of keep to themselves. But if you go over and say hi to them, they're super excited. They're new American neighbors. Okay. You get a new family or new dude, and you go over and say hi, and he's like, hey, this is what I think of you. Why are you so standoffish, buddy? You live in the neighborhood now. Why? You know what I mean? But again, I'm just concerned that this puffery, our leadership is not may not make the right moves, or we just got too many players in a small space and someone's going to screw up and they're going to basically knock the wheels off the wagon in a bad way. And I promise you, if that happens, it won't be a foreign war, even if nobody drops a nuke anywhere. Okay, there are plenty of conventional munitions that can be used and hit pretty much anything in the earth. That one's going to come home for them and for us, and it's not going to be pretty. So I have to infiltrate to the U.S. I think if enough of us wrote a letter of request to the State Department, we can probably help Monique just come in without the sneaking part. Um, hey, Last Prepper, what's going on? Uh, right, and if you go into town, keep an eye on what you see. Very often they'll catch people who are planning bombings and stuff because they act wonky and everyone's going about their business and you got this one weirdo in the corner doing strange shit and you're like, I don't trust you, but you're just being strange. But guys, this excuse me, this Ukraine, Russia, Poland situation, uh, they've basically flooded Poland, who's probably our most powerful NATO ally on that side of the alliance, with a bunch of immigrants, right? So now their soldiers are completely dispersed dealing with this nonsense. They're using those immigrants, these refugees, as human collateral because Russia doesn't give a shit about them. And they're doing the same to the Baltics. And while they're arguing and fighting over that, Russia's positioning armor, artillery, and I honestly think they're going to carve off a western piece of the Ukraine and say this is Russia 2.0, whatever they call it. And my fear is if it's just between Russia and the Ukraine, it needs to stay there. We can sell them weapons, whatever. We don't need maybe put special ops to train them. Don't touch that officially. My fear is with Poland, the Baltics, and the other nations that are NATO members, someone's going to screw up. They're going to miscalculate. And actually, if you've never read the book 2017 War with Russia, it was written by Major General Richard Sharif from the United Kingdom. He was the deputy NATO commander for that part of the world. And that's what his prediction was. There would be puffery. They would do a massive hack to the Baltics. I mean, right. And but I'm thinking it's going to be 2.0 of that, Joe. They're gonna, and they did. They tried to hack Ukraine, but they're going to hack a bunch of countries and make their move at the same time. The problem is, I fear, with all our presence, the UK, Germany, you've got a lot of people being puffed up with each other. Someone's going to screw up and they're going to pop off. And like I said, even if it's regional, you think the supply chain was bad with the Rona, go start a small war in the middle of an ocean and watch what happens. It'll be screwed up for years. Um, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this doesn't play out. But, I'd love to play chess, and you're always thinking of multiple moves, and this is one possible outcome. So there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do about what they're doing. So what we need to do, continue your personal preparedness, continue to make sure you have the food, where if we have a major supply chain disruption or a cutoff because of some combative action in the ocean, that you can get by, you and yours can get by for a period of time. Hopefully they negotiate it out. I mean, Cuban Missile Crisis was scary as shit for the folks back then, but they worked it out, and coins and little puzzle pieces were traded. The two countries went, we're good, and everyone calmed down. True. And Russia remembers that, by the way. So more than likely, they will rocket the shit out of Finland because they won't put ground troops there. The Finns are actually very good winter warriors, without a doubt. These guys mastered that shit. And again, we've heard a lot of the people in power keep saying, well, we want a population control. That's a great way to do it. But not if they pop nukes, but they wouldn't have to. Like I said, there's plenty of conventional weapons out there that can absolutely train wreck everything. Just enough so that a few billion people starve. This could absolutely be a mess, or it can be absolutely nothing, depending on how these negotiators and ambassadors play their cards. So and again, why aren't they fixing the street crime I was ranting about yesterday? Why are they worried about this? Well, this would be a great way to get our attention on something else, especially like not pay attention to Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever she was, and the pedophile ring of whoever was out there. Don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to the street crime or the inflation that we cause. Yeah, we've heard that. I've heard conflicting stories, but yeah, there are camps for people that are unmedicated, or is it sick? I'm not sure. Nope. So, guys, there's a lot of moving parts, and as much as us and Canada and the US want to be isolated, the truth of the matter is we're all interlinked. And if something pops off somewhere, it could suck us in. If nothing else, even if we're not involved, it's going to tank the stock market. So um, yeah, Joe had a good comment, but I lost it. It's in there somewhere. Well, yeah, they can have them steal from us. Yeah. So, uh, oh, they're building camps in Canada. That's awesome. I thought it was a lady, Arkansas. Am I thinking of the wrong sniper? Yeah. There and last prepper, absolutely. There's that's gibberish, really, because if she names a bunch of perverts and they arrest them all, I could give a rat's. I'm more worried that we get into it with someone and they decide, well, we're not going to throw nukes at you, but let's throw a bunch of conventional missiles at something like your refineries and see how that works for you. And that's going to become a garbage. Yeah, it's going to be a shit show. And then we blow up their docks in Kaliningrad, as somebody had pointed out earlier, and screw up their shipping, and then they'll be pissed, and then it just goes downhill. So yeah, Corn Pop, I think it's Auslander you're talking about. I may be thinking of the wrong guy. Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's Auslander. I can't remember who it was. Somebody may have mentioned him. Uh, but folks, look, just pay attention to this stuff. Make sure you have what you need. Um, right now, the feds are arguing over a budget. They're probably going to shut the government down again. So you don't want that to happen and you get caught flat footed. So make sure you can self contain for a little bit while in the event something goes sideways with this. Well, it's not a question of who's got more to lose, is kind of the ends justifying the means. If they can get this to go off, and Russia might lose. Who knows? Everyone will be paying attention to that. And you early in the presentation, I showed the chart of wars and recessions and the consumer price index and how it fluctuated. And that's a great way to fix inflation. Uh, but yeah, that's or who has the most to gain? If you want to flip the question backwards. But well, gang, look, I'm gonna call it. I know this was an off schedule chat, but I wanted to point this out to you because when I started digging into the street crime and the inflation, I started seeing all of these bigger issues that are all intertwined. And I really hope we don't have somebody decide something stupid and says, well, this would distract everyone from the inflation we caused, because that won't be an international war. That'll come home in one way, shape, or form. It will come home. So, gang, I'm going to cut you all loose. It's an early and, like I said, unscheduled live. I hope all of you have a great week, a great weekend. Y'all be safe, take care, and be careful out there. Pay attention to what's going on and adjust your preps accordingly depending on what you think may happen. All you can do, make your best guess at what you might have to battle and then stock up to face that threat. If it helps, write it down. It may help you that way too. That's sometimes I do. In any case, guys, God bless, Godspeed if you're on the road. Prayers to all our troops, and we will see you guys later on. Take care.